My name is Merl Reagle. I make Sunday crossword puzzles for a living, and I'm syndicated in a lot of newspapers across the country. So I was trying to just do crossword puzzles while pursuing a normal career or whatever the heck that was going to be, because we all knew that you couldn't make any money in crossword puzzles. So do some, and also who would want to look back on? Yes, my whole life was devoted to making crossword puzzles. Whoever wanted. So I always until this one point when I was in my 20s, I think. I said, well, but most people who solve crossword puzzles only solve newspaper crossword puzzles. 80% of crossword fans don't buy books or magazines. They solve the puzzle in the paper and then they go off to something else. So we thought, well, then the way to make money, to make a living in it, since that's what I was doing, even when I was supposed to be doing something else, I'm always making puzzles, is to get into papers. For example, when I got in the San Francisco Chronicle, it was the Examiner at the time, we got that job through a very funny thing. They were at the Examiner. They were starting a new magazine called Image, and all the consultants said, "You got a magazine starting in a major newspaper. You got to have a crossword puzzle in the back." So they called New York and said, like to Dell or New York Times, said, "Do you know anybody who can make us a puzzle every week?" And they called actually a friend of ours, and that person sent them a puzzle, and that puzzle got this response from them. It says, "This puzzle has terrier in it, like the dog, T-E-R-R-I-E-R. If this person lived out here in California, they'd have used Perrier in a second. It's only one letter difference, P. Do you have anybody who has a California sensibility?" And they said, "Well, Merle lives in Santa Monica. How about calling?" So they called me, and I got the job. And we didn't really know how it was going over for 4 or 5 years until I did a puzzle called Tearfully Yours, which had answers like this. I'm moving to the Big Apple. I got hired by the New York Times. You can't be funny forever. Blah, blah, blah. The last line was, incidentally, April Fool. Because this Sunday happened to occur on an April Fool. Well, a lot of people solved that, didn't get to the bottom in San Francisco, and thought I was actually leaving. And they got such a torrent of mail that they devoted the whole letter section to the, if I'd have had a heart attack, you'd have heard from my lawyer. All this kind of friendly, so that's when we knew that there was an audience for this kind of puzzle. So that was almost the official endorsement, like, okay, because solvers won't write in unless you make a mistake. If you're hilarious, this is the greatest puzzle I've ever seen. Well, they do kind of now, but in the 85 to 1990, this was a new kind of puzzle. Now, at San Francisco, I thought if it was going to work, that's where it was going to work, because they were kind of a with it kind of a crowd. And they're up on things, and if I make mentions and make jokes about TV shows and movies, that's a pretty smart crowd. To syndicate that across the country, in places where, you don't expect people to be all, there's red states and blue states, you kind of have to, come down a little bit. You can't be too, I've done things in San Francisco that I would never do now,
So there are plenty of people who could say that.
Most of the job is thinking of the themes and settling on the 10 or so that are going to go in the puzzle. That takes days. And sometimes I have a little black book where I keep track of all these. Once I have that list, then to actually put them in, a couple hours, 3 hours maybe, and then to clue it another 3. My record because I didn't know something was due once, I made a whole puzzle from scratch in 4.5 hours. Now I can make a really lousy puzzle in 2 hours probably. I have ones where I can sort of do multiple ones of them. Inappropriate music for a doctor's office. Killing me softly. I don't want to hear that in a doctor's office. Stop dragging my heart around. Trying to get the feeling again. I don't want to hear that in a doctor's office. Movies that shouldn't be shown together. Driving Miss Daisy nuts. 3 Men and a Baby, Anaconda. Soap dish hair is my favorite. So and I can do 87 puzzles with just those ideas, because they have this kind of the one you see almost every weekend now is add a letter or change a letter or drop a letter. Monkey pee, monkey do. 2 reasons not to become a zookeeper. I can't use that one because that crosses it's a Sunday morning breakfast test. It breaks that rule. But the best years of Burl lives. It's a 1-letter change. My grandmother had willed me a 1919 unabridged dictionary, which I used to go over her house and sit with it on my lap. There's even one time I had this blank 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 F blank B blank blank blank, and I thought blank 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 F blank B blank blank blank. And I didn't know any, I thought, well, maybe self something. So I looked through the dictionary, self-abuse. And the definition just said masturbation. I had no idea. I was 9. I didn't know what this was. So I still have this puzzle where it says self-abuse right across. Now to me, blank, 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 F, blank, B, blank, blank, blank would be draft beer in a second. Because I just know these things. But at the time, I didn't have this accumulation of knowledge, of pointless knowledge. And so now, just letter combinations, words where the letters are, I just, by the sheer tonnage of looking at words so much, I know, like Wheel of Fortune is a snap to me, And I used to be able to sing My Bonnie Lies Over the Ocean, reach where it was backwards. Enob sil revo et Nico.
Right.
Enob sil revo et is. Enob sil revo et Nico. Hoganerb cab enob ot So...
Is it public domain?
I think so.
Well, the only game shows I would ever try out for were the word ones. So I tried out for Scrabble. So I'm sitting, how these cattle calls go. You're in Hollywood, and we're looking for contestants for Scrabble. So you come to this room, and there's like 900 people in this room. And eventually you take a little test, and then they keep maybe 300 people. And then of the 300, they'd say, so what do you do? I'm a writer. What do you write? Crossword puzzles. Boo! The whole crowd was like booing me. So I have to say, I'm sorry, that's an unfair advantage. So you have to kick you out. So, well, what was invented on December 21st today? What was invented on December 21st, 1913?
That would have been the crossword puzzle.
That is right. We are actually shooting this on the 94th birthday of the crossword puzzle.
Wow. And that was not planned. And I've never met either of you two before, right?
You've never met me before.
You are not a Confederate.